Hey y'all, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're going to be discussing how to randomly sort a table in Notion. So I've been playing around with building a knowledge garden for myself now that I've moved back to Notion. It's a mix of Zettelkasten and digital garden note-taking methods. And I wanted a way to bubble up a random note to review semi-regularly, but couldn't find a simple formula that I liked. And so here's the one that I went with. So what I want. For my sort needs, I want something where each page gets a unique value so that I can sort them against each other in a database. Different values on each load so that each time I visit it, the order is randomized, which is how we're actually going to bubble up that random note. And then finally, the sort has no discernible pattern so that it's randomized enough for my purposes. Getting like a true random is actually very hard, and we're kind of limited with the tools that Notion gives us, but as long as we can approach some sort of pseudo-random, that's good enough for me. Notion table random sort. So to randomly sort a database in Notion, I created a random property with a formula that computes a random number based on the current time and page. And so each page gets a unique value. We're using page ID to get this. And then I've also added in last edited time to add a bit more entropy here for each page as it can change over time. Sometimes if you stick with just like one seed value, the pages can still fall into a pattern just because of the way the seed is. And so by adding in last edited time, we allow that seed to change over time, which should add some additional entropy to this. Next is different value on each load. And so we use the current timestamp to get this. It only updates each minute, but that is fast enough for my use cases. Notion's time does give you to the millisecond, but it only does to the millisecond by minute granularity. And so you can't really update this faster than that. And finally, the sort has no discernible patterns. We're mixing the factors along with some prime numbers in a modulo to get this. There's probably are still some patterns in this. If you looked closely, this is not like cryptographically random, but it's close enough for just like bubbling up a random note. And so here's the formula, and I've commented it pretty extensively, but we can still walk through it. Yeah. I wish I had better syntax highlighting here, but I don't. Maybe I can just show you in Notion. Okay, so here's that copy pasted in Notion. And so basically what we're doing is we're using a let's block, and a let's block is essentially just a block that allows you to declare variables and their values one after the other, with the very last value being what's returned from it. And so we're creating this let's block, and first we're going to get the page ID, which we'll use as the stable seed. This means that each row in a database, which itself is a page, will return the ID that it has, which is a hex ID. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to take all the letters out of it so that it just turns into one big long number. And I have an example of what this looks like here. So when I take the page ID and I take all the letters out, you can see that it turns into just like one very large random number. Although it's not really random, you can see that this is actually incrementing, but it's random enough for our purposes. Then we're going to get the current time in milliseconds, which again is to the minute granularity. And I can prove that here. You can see that this formula is just two number now, and they all end with these zeros. And if I update this, we'll see that we get a new number, but it's all still zeros at the end, and it's because it's only doing to the 60-second mill mark. And this is important for our random because we want to avoid zeros at the end, because that could negate some of the entropy at the end and the least significant digits. Next, we get the last edited time, again with the milliseconds to add that extra entropy, and then we're mixing them all together. And so we're using primes to do this. So for each factor, we're multiplying by primes. We're using unique primes, primes that are close to the modulo number we're using, which is 10,000. I'm not an expert on the actual math behind this, but this is typically how you get good randoms. As you multiply each factor by primes close to the number that you're going to modulo by, and this gives a pretty good distribution across your number range and helps prevent some of those patterns from emerging because you might have like been negating a factor or something like that. And finally, we're just doing a modulo 10,000 to break it down to just those least significant digits, which helps bigger numbers that start at much higher values, for instance, because of page ID, to wrap around, and we get more of a mixed distribution. Depending on the size of your database, you might want to use more than 10,000, which is fine, like 100,000 or something, although I'd say at that point, probably Notion is going to start failing you in terms of speed. So I think 10,000 by itself is decent enough and gives you a lot of unique sorts. And then as an example, for my random, basically, I just have it here as my random sort, and then it just updates every time I reload my page. So we can see that we got a new value. But then if I reload it again, you can see 720, 31, 52. It's going to stay the same, and that's because we haven't hit a new number marker, because again, Notion only updates now and timestamps on the minute marker, and so we'd have to wait till the time hits the next minute for this to change. Next. So this is a pseudo random, so I wouldn't use this in production code. I would choose to actually use a built-in like standard library random or some sort of like cryptographic hash to actually get random or close to it. But it works well enough for my purposes and is really one of the closer things we can get to it with Notion's toolset currently, so I'm sticking with that. If you like this post, you might also like why I'm moving back to Notion from Obsidian for personal notes. You might also be interested in Notion and data loss and privacy should you be worried about losing or leaking your notes. And finally, my simple daily to-do list as a software engineer, maximize productivity and minimize waste. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.